Moja kwa moja mtazamaji, nadhani umekuwa ukifuatilia taarifa hisia mbalimbali zinazotolewa hususan kutoka kwa waangalizi wa kimataifa ambao wameutaja kuwa uchaguzi uliokuwa huru na wazi na kupelekea Wakenya kutoka sehemu mbalimbali kujitokeza na kuweza kushiriki kwenye shughuli hii ya kidemokrasia, ingawa kulikuwa na changamoto za hapa na pale. Haya ni baadhi ya mambo tu tunayoyafuatilia siku hii ya leo, kando pia na kuangazia matukio mbalimbali yanayoendelea hivi sasa. Naarifiwa kwamba kuna mikutano mbalimbali ya waandishi wa habari na viongozi mbalimbali ambao wamekuwa katika mstari wa mbele kuwa washikadau katika mchakato mzima wa uchaguzi ambao ulifanyika hapo juzi, matokeo yakiendelea kutiririka katika baadhi ya maeneo, huku sehemu nyingine pia washindi wakikabidhiwa vyeti rasmi va kuwatambua kuwa wao ndio washindi katika chaguzi hizo kupitia nafasi mbalimbali. Nitakuletea taarifa hizo na nyingine nyingi tu, ikiwa pia bado tunawasiliana na baadhi ya wanahabari wenzangu walio katika maeneo mbalimbali ili kuweza kujua kinachoendelea hivi sasa. Basi kuna mkutano naarifiwa unaendelea katika tume ya IEBC makao makuu ya kupokea matokeo yote. Hivi sasa tuende katika sehemu hiyo ili tuweze kusikia kinachoendelea.
Those voters requiring assistance, including pregnant women, the elderly, and those with disabilities, were given preferential treatment at the polling stations. We also found that despite some cases where polling clerks had to resort to alphanumeric entries, in the majority of voters were able to be identified through the biometric verification devices. On the whole, relatively few incidents were reported that had a significant impact on the voting process. Throughout the election day, it was also commendable to note that women made up large numbers of polling staff and party agents and continue to make up a significant proportion of those who voted. Party agents were evident in large numbers due to the number of political parties participating in these elections. This was commendable as it allowed for a high degree of transparency and oversight over the process. At the close of polls at 1700 hours, the majority of polling stations had a small number of remaining voters or no queues at all. All our teams deployed reported that the polls closed peacefully in their respective locations and that the counts were conducted efficiently and transparently. The count in general followed the prescribed procedures. There are reports of a substantial number of spoiled ballots indicating inadequate voter education. The adoption of new technologies by the IEBC for the transmission of results in the electoral process gave rise to questions of trust in the new system on the part of the opposition. We noted the decision by the Court of Appeal on 4th August to dismiss a suit by NASA which had called for the elections to be postponed in the event of a total failure of the electronic voter identification and results transmission system. We noted also the assurances provided by the IEBC that results will be transmitted both alphanumerically and through a scan of the results form from each polling station and from the constituency level. The media present here will recall that at a press conference on the eve of elections, which Mr. Mbeki and I addressed, we had stated that these elections would prove to be a crucial test of leadership for Kenya. We had called on all political leaders and others involved in the electoral process to play their roles with due diligence and to use their influence constructively to ensure that the process on election day, the counting, the announcement of results, and events thereafter would proceed smoothly and without incident. We noted the statements made by Mr. Raila Odinga and his agents in which he rejected the results being announced by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission as fraudulent and illegal. And he called upon Kenyans to reject the results being issued unless, in his view, they were properly verified. We have viewed these statements seriously. We're mindful that the process of collating the results is still ongoing. I wish to reiterate my earlier call for leadership, and I therefore call upon all political party leaders and their supporters to show restraint and magnanimity as the results process continues to unfold. It is vital that all political leaders maintain peace and calm, exercise patience, and not stampede the process. The IEBC should be allowed the appropriate time and space to complete the results process with the necessary due diligence being exercised, and any grievances arising therefrom should be addressed through the prescribed legal channels. In this regard, we commend the reassurance of the chairperson of the IEBC that results will not be declared until Forms 3A and Forms 34A and 34B are corroborated prior to the declaration of the presidential election results. We are pleased to note that that verification process of these forms at the National Tallying Center is currently ongoing with the participation of candidates of all the political parties. Overall conclusion. We want to commend Kenyans for their patience and call for this to continue as the results process continues to unfold. We have followed the whole process and wish to congratulate all on the process thus far. It is my fervent hope and expectation that a positive, peaceful, and orderly atmosphere that we all experienced on 8 August will continue to prevail as we await the conclusion of this electoral process. Our overall conclusion is that the opening, voting, closing, and counting process at the polling stations on 8 August 2017 were credible, transparent, and inclusive. We commend and congratulate the Kenyan voters, the staff of the IEBC, political party agents and candidates agents, the media, and all security personnel for their commitment to the democratic process. They were efficient in the conduct of their respective roles, which contributed to the conduct of a peaceful poll on 8 August 2017. Finally, it is our hope that by bringing this electoral process to a successful conclusion, Kenya will serve as an inspiration for the rising tide of democracy throughout the Commonwealth. Our full assessment of the entire electoral process will be contained in our final report to be issued later. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. The copies of the statement are available at the back, and of course it goes without saying perhaps, but all can be, you can assume that all in the statement has been read into the record. Yes, please. Could you just say your name and organisation, please?
Your Excellency, my name is Waangalizi from Ignoro TV. Away from the Observer Mission, as an African statesman and someone who's faced a competitive election before, what would you say to the hearts and souls that today feel like they have lost or won?
Elections must be conducted in a manner that all stakeholders, whether they win or lose, feel that they have been treated fairly. And so these elections are supposed to be a win-win for all Kenyans. And that is why the integrity of the voting process is important, so that everybody has a high level of confidence that what was expressed was the will of the Kenyan people. And so I encourage the political leaders to rise to the occasion. They need to make Kenya proud. Kenya must not burn because of an election. Kenya must survive and continue to provide the kind of environment that guarantees a decent existence for all its people.
Okay, I have one and then two, please. Yes, please.
So, Philipina from the SABC, I have 3 questions. The first one is about the issue of on the day people went to the polls, we observed that the senior citizens, people who are sick, they all went to the polls, and it was quite disturbing to see people struggling. The issue of a special vote, did you perhaps look at that and advise the Electoral Commission here to look at that? The other issue is 6 ballot papers for elderly people. Some can't even see properly, can't read, and some, they are quite old. Is it not too much to have one election day on different levels of spheres of government?
Thank you very much. In most of the polling stations we observed, priority was given for special needs. And so I noted, and many of our observers noted, that persons with physical disability, pregnant women, very old people were allowed priority access to vote. And so I guess that it is a question of morality and decency. And even though it may not be prescribed in the voting code, I believe that our African culture and human decency, indicates that priority should be given to such persons. I cannot make a pronouncement on the number of ballots that had to be cast by Kenyans. I can speak from the experience of my country. We have a maximum of 2 ballots per voting day. And so we vote for our parliament and our president on one day, and then in the midterm we vote for our local council members and the other devolved institutions. But I guess it's for Kenyans to decide, if it's not a bit too heavy to ask people to decide on 6 different elections on the same day. I guess it's something that we can take an experience from this election.
Your Excellency, Mohammed Daniel Fitman, Radio France International. You have a unique insight into alleged tampering with election results. During the 2012 election, there were allegations made by the then opposition leader Nana Akufo-Addo, the now sitting president. Given these hacking allegations, what is your take?
You've asked 2 questions. Are you asking about my experience in a Ghanaian election, or you're asking me about the Kenyan election?
Well, you do have a unique insight into that. Nana Akufo-Addo did take a case to the Supreme Court, I believe.
And I think that that's the way to go. In any elections, there might be grievances that arise as a result of some perceived irregularities. And the laid-down procedure is that if you have evidence of those irregularities, you resolve them in the law courts. And so that's the way to go, and that's how we went in 2012. With regards to the allegation of hacking, yes, it was brought to our attention that there had been an interference or a corruption in the electronic transmission process of the Electoral Commission. And as President Thabo Mbeki indicated, our observer missions are not clothed with the investigative capacity to even investigate those allegations. And so our duty is to take note of those allegations, which we did. We listened to Mr. Odinga, and he spelled out what those allegations were. And those allegations were directed to the IEBC. The IEBC conducted a check and said, as far as they have reviewed, they have not found any such evidence. I believe that there are appropriate procedures for continuing that investigation to find out if anything happened. But elections, the integrity of elections are guaranteed by the backup systems that support those elections. So giving, but not admitting that there was a hacking, there are backup systems to still guarantee the integrity of the elections. And that is why in the case of the Kenyan elections, it said that once the voting had ended, the results at the polling station level, that is the raw data at the polling station level, were going to be transmitted alphanumerically directly to the tallying center. And those are the figures that we keep seeing advertised on the television screens. But the more rigorous work and the safeguard of this election is the scanning of the Form 34As at the polling station. And those Form 34As, the scanned copies, which become a digital document, are then transmitted through the constituencies to the National Tallying Center. At every stage of the process, party agents are supposed to supervise. And the chair of the Electoral Commission has said that he was not going to pronounce any results based on the tallying that we're seeing on the television, because those are provisional results. The actual results are going to be tallied on the basis of the forms that were filled and signed by the presiding officers and the party agents at the polling level. And as of this morning, we are aware that the party agents are at the National Tallying Center, and they are going through those Form A's and going through the Form B's, 34 B's, with the Electoral Commission in order that they come to a conclusion as to who won the presidential election. And so I think that party stakeholders must exercise patience and let's see that process through. If that process concludes and the IEBC declare a winner, anybody who has a grievance knows what he should do. No Kenyan blood must be shed because somebody is aggrieved with the electoral process.
Okay. One, two, yeah, okay.
Your Excellency, my name is Abdul Ranin from the BBC World Service. My first question is, even according to your report and as it has been in the past, during the voting day, everything is peaceful, and you've even commended Kenya for that. But it appears that there is a continental challenge concerning disputes related to transmission of results and even the final results itself. As a statesman, why do you think this is a problem in our continent, in some parts of the continent that is, and how can it best to address it based on the observer's recommendation? And my final question, the sitting President Uhuru Kenyatta, as a stakeholder, have you been in contact with him concerning the progress of the election of the observer mission? And maybe you know of his position, or if you have had any contact with him, maybe because Kenyans are also waiting, he has been very silent. Thank you.
Well, I cannot compel him to speak, and so that answers the latter part of your question. I guess he's satisfied with the process so far, and so he's not compelled to speak until that process plays out. But you're talking about disputed elections. It is not easy to lose an election, and it can be very disappointing. But I believe that in an election, both the victor and the loser can both be winners, because in the end, it is the interest of the people you wish to serve for which that electoral process is taking place. And if the people make a decision and they say, we prefer candidate A over you, your victory is to be a gracious loser if you are assured that that process has been free and fair. And if you believe it's not been free and fair and you have grievances, you can still be a winner by using the legitimate procedures to address those grievances. And so, yes, it's difficult to lose, but better a gracious loser than a sore loser. And so let's see how that process plays out. But like I said, every electoral system has instruments to ensure the integrity of the election. And the IEBC cannot use those instruments. It's the candidates and the parties that must use those instruments. And one of the most critical instruments available to the stakeholders is to be able to police that poll from start to finish. And that is why parties are allowed agents at the polling station. And it is the duty of the parties to make sure that they've trained their agents sufficiently to be able to look out for anything that will affect the sanctity of the poll. And so those instruments are made available by the Electoral Commissioner. The Electoral Commission does not bear the total responsibility for the conduct of the poll. The political stakeholders play a very critical part in that regard. And so once that has been done, and largely the election is seen to be free and fair, and I don't say that elections are perfect and absolute. We've seen disputed elections even in America and other places. Once it is determined that largely the process has been transparent and credible, I think that it behoves on political stakeholders to rise to the occasion and be seen as statesmen. And that is the juncture at which Kenya is. Kenya has the potential to be the most inspiring democracy on the African continent if it goes successfully over this electoral hurdle. And so I call on all Kenyans to be patient, let the process play out, let's hear the final determination of the IEBC, and after that has been done, if anybody has a grievance, the law provides you an avenue to be able to resolve those grievances.
Okay, time is on our friend, so we will take you, and just a final one from you, madam. Okay, but you first, please, but please keep it short.
Right. My name is Kainga Okamba from ABC. The allegation by the opposition NASA primarily actually doubts the capability of the Electoral Commission to provide a credible election. From where you sit, have you also started to have a doubt, like the way the opposition is going to be beginning to doubt the credibility of the election?
I have just presented an interim statement, and our interim statement speaks for itself, that thus far, we believe that the election has been conducted in a transparent and credible manner, and that Kenyans must be commended for that election. As I said, the process has not determined. The process is ongoing. It is only when the final results are declared by the Electoral Commission that the electoral process would have come to an end. Thus far, I have not been given any cause to doubt the ability of the IEBC to deliver a credible election. That would be my answer.
Hi, my name is Betty Njiru from KTN News. Your Excellencies, it was the first time in the history of elections in Kenya that the country was using the electronic system in terms of voting and transmission of results. Did you notice any major challenges, and if yes, who might have been the most affected parties?
I think that Kenya must be commended for the technology that you adopted in respect of these elections. Being a person who has had experience with elections in Ghana, our systems have been separate. We have a biometric verification machine which just verifies that the person standing up in front of you is the actual person he says he is, and he's eligible to vote. Once that is done, that machine has finished its work. Then once the elections are counted and tallied, at the constituency centers, we have an electronic system for transmitting. So the two are not joined together. I noticed that in the case of Kenya, the same verification machine is the same machine in a tablet form that's the transmission of the raw poll data to the IEBC. On the whole, I think that it largely has worked properly, unless evidence is established that some interference has happened, which so far has not been the case. The allegation is that the interference is into the server of the Electoral Commission, and so there's been no complaint about the actual performance of those machines. But let me say that yes, there were a few cases where voting was delayed because the wrong machine had been sent to the wrong polling stream, and so it delayed voting unduly. But it didn't favor any political party. The IEBC moved in quickly and resolved the issues. In other cases, we witnessed people were joining the wrong queues, and so they get to the head of the queue, and when they try to verify, they are not registered there, and they are redirected. Fortunately, the template had a means of redirecting the voter. So you see something that says that go to stream 8, and so they were redirected to go to stream 8. I don't know if they had the patience to vote, because if you came early in the morning and you are at the head of queue, and you go and it says it can't verify you because you're in the wrong stream, and they say go to stream 8. Of course, that long queue at stream 8, they're not going to ask you to go ahead of that queue. You're going to start from behind. And so I'm hoping that those who were redirected had the patience to join those queues and cast their ballots. But I think largely the technology worked, unless some evidence come up later that prove otherwise.
Okay, thank you very much. On behalf of the Observer Group, thank you very much for your interest and attention. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Kabla ya kuondoka kukamilisha kazi yao kama
Na mtazamaji, huyo ni aliyekuwa rais wa Ghana John Mahama hapo, ambaye ndio kiongozi katika kundi la waangalizi kutoka Jumuiya ya Madola, hapo wakitoa taarifa yao ambayo ndio awali kuhusiana na mchakato mzima wa uchaguzi hapa nchini Kenya, ikiwa zimepita siku 2 tu baada ya uchaguzi huo. Na kulingana na taarifa hiyo, anasema kwamba ni uchaguzi ambao ulikuwa huru, wazi na Wakenya walijitokeza kwa wingi. Vile vile inakwenda sambamba na taarifa ya wale waangalizi kutoka Jumuiya ya Afrika, yani AU, ambao pia tulikuwa tumekuletea kwa njia ya moja kwa moja, ingawa pia wananakili baadhi ya changamoto ambazo zimeweza kujitokeza, lakini pia wanatoa ushauri kwa njia ambayo inafaa kufuatwa ili kuweza kukabiliana na changamoto hizo, hapo kwa wale ambao waliweza kutoa changamoto zao kuhusiana na uchaguzi huo. Mtazamaji,